Joining us right now from the newest host of Locked On's Cavs and my homie from 92.3 The Fan, Danny Cunningham. Danny, what's up, bro? Thanks for joining the show.
Of course. What's going on, guys? How's everyone doing today?
We are doing well. Danny is your new host of the Locked On Cavs podcast, so make sure you guys check that out. It's a daily podcast wherever you find your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. It's on all platforms, so make sure you guys give Danny a follow and a subscription because he's putting out Cavs content on the daily. Danny, I want to start with this. The Cavs have yet to hire a head coach. They've had multiple in-person interviews. Are you surprised it's taken this long for the Cavs to make any type of announcement to formally make someone their new head coach?
I'm a little surprised that it's taken this long, but I also think that they're in a position where, there is one other head coaching opening with the Lakers, but I don't necessarily think that they're competing for candidates. I know James Borrego's been mentioned out in Los Angeles, but I think a lot of people would be pretty surprised if it's not JJ Redick, and the Cavs really haven't been connected to him. So I am a little surprised that it's taken this long. I know Kobe Altman mentioned at his postseason availability that they ideally would like to have someone in place by the NBA draft, although that might be a little bit aggressive for them, but that's next week. And I sort of, at this point, I know they want to be thorough, but I also don't exactly know what they're still waiting for. I think James Borrego probably is going to be the guy. That's my best guess. But time will tell, I suppose.
When you look at all the moves that they have to make this offseason, obviously the Donovan Mitchell extension, I don't want to talk about that one. I actually want to talk about Evan Mobley. Do you think he should get the rookie max extension? I think that's what it is he's eligible for. Or do you think they should wait until next year to let him sign a deal?
So I think it makes sense to give him that big extension this year. And that extension, it's not the same one Donovan Mitchell is eligible to sign in terms of money. It's far less percent of the cap for the Cavs. I think that they should, because when you drag this out, and let's play this out, say they don't sign him, he becomes a restricted free agent next summer. And that is something that can be somewhat damaging at times to relationships between teams and players. I know Evan hasn't progressed offensively the way that just about everybody thought he would to this point, but he is still a really good basketball player. He's a phenomenal defender. I think there's a lot of stuff that simple tweaks can make his offensive game much more impactful. So I would give him that extension this summer. I think it's something that the Cavs will do. I would be pretty surprised if he's not on he'd be on the last year of his rookie deal this year, but if he's not on that rookie max extension 2 years from now, I think that's the most likely outcome here.
I'm with you. I think Evan gets the max. I don't think there's much of a question over that. I think Donovan resigns. The one I'm curious about is Isaac Okoro. Is he on this team next year? Do you think he's on this team next year?
I think so, because I don't know what his market's going to be elsewhere. Like, there's not a ton of teams, Jason, you know this, with a ton of cap room. And the teams that I do think have a lot of cap room, are they going to overpay for Isaac Okoro to the point where the Cavs wouldn't match that offer? I don't see a situation out there, and maybe he finds something, in the sign and trade market that makes more sense for him, but I'm not necessarily sure I see a really good avenue for him to be out of Cleveland. I don't necessarily think he's going to be on the Cavs for the rest of his career, but I think he's back next year. I think he's a very useful piece too. I do wonder if, he becomes a more willing shooter, how much more valuable he can be, or if that backcourt is split up, and I know we can talk about that too, but if he's playing more of the two guard alongside Donovan Mitchell, if that's something that sort of allows him to be a little bit more impactful too.
Yeah, Dan, before I ask my next question, my executive producer said your shirt reminds him of me. So what does your shirt say? I can only see the top
it
half
says
of the letters.
it says hoops for breakfast.
Oh, yeah, that's a great shirt.
It's just a simple Nike graphic shirt that says hoops for breakfast. It was I've got it on today because it's clean.
Hey, elite shirt, and I appreciate that, Steve Becker, I guess. Dan, my question, though, is you mentioned Okoro possibly playing the two. When I look at the Cavs' big picture, they had so many role guys who you never knew if you were going to get a great performance or a terrible performance. And there was kind of very little in between, especially come playoff time. Okoro was a nothing. Niang was a nothing. LeVert is the epitome of the roller coaster, either here or there. I think I'm kind of over the Cavs with their entire cast of role players being completely volatile, and I'd prefer some more consistency. So with that in mind, Karis LeVert's a guy who could potentially be moved this offseason. I know he's not one of the big names we've talked about on this show a lot, but Would you be in favor of moving LeVert for maybe someone a little more stable if the right deal is on the table for the Cavs in that regard?
I would be, but I think with Karis LeVert, I think it's smart to think a little bit bigger there, because if you put together, and we know that the Cavs have privately been saying, and other teams have been saying, that the Cavs don't want to break up their core four. But if you combine Karis LeVert's contract and Jarrett Allen's contract, you can get up to $36 million there. LeVert's making, I believe, just around $16 million next year. You could trade two guys for a bigger piece on the wing that is a little bit, brings more of that consistency that you're looking for, is a better basketball player, someone that is a better fit alongside what the rest of the Cavs have. That's what I would be looking for, because I'm not sure what sort of value Karis LeVert has just as himself, as a contract in the trade market. So I do think that if you're looking to move him, you might want to combine him with another salary just to be able to get something that's a little bit bigger and a better talent for the Cavs back.
What do you think the Cavs' best option moving forward is? Is it to keep the core four, or do you think they should trade one or two of those pieces for something better?
I think the best option is to break it up. I understand that continuity is something that's rare in the NBA, and it's really good when you have it. But I think Donovan Mitchell's a superstar. I do. And I think he and Darius Garland can work together in the backcourt. But in the front court, the Cavs aren't getting the most out of Evan Mobley. And I think that when they traded for Donovan Mitchell, that was a move that raised the floor of this organization. Like, if everyone's healthy, they're going to be a team that is a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference. They absolutely have the capability of winning a playoff series, maybe 2. He's that floor raiser. But I still think Evan Mobley is the ceiling raiser for this team. And I don't think that Evan Mobley can get to his potential where the Cavs need him to be, where the Cavs thought he would get to when they made that Donovan Mitchell trade, if he's not playing center more often than not. And he can't play center more often than not if Jarrett Allen's still on the team. So that's the move that I would make. And I also think Jarrett Allen's value is probably about as high on the trade market as it's going to get. Think about coming off the Knicks series last year, how low it was. And then he had a fantastic season. I think he's a pretty sought-after guy from other teams in the NBA. So that's the move I would make, because I think that, one, you'd get a lot back, and two, that's sort of how I think you unlock Evan Mobley, and that's got to be a pretty important thing for the Cavs.
Who's your pick at coach? Who do you want him to hire?
For me, it's Borrego. That's the guy. I like him. I think what he did in Charlotte, and I understand that organization really was a mess before he was there, certainly at times when he was there, and has been since. But if you look at what they were able to do offensively with a young LaMelo Ball, and Jason, it's really difficult in the NBA to be good offensively with a rookie or second-year ball-dominant guard. That just does not happen often. And for them to be, I think they were 6th in offense LaMelo's rookie year, that's something that shows me, okay, he can, if he's the guy, he's someone that can optimize this offense. And I think that's what's so badly needed, because the bones of this team being a good defensive team are going to be there just by who's on the roster. I think they really need someone that can kickstart the offense. And I think Borrego would be that guy. I like Kenny Atkinson a lot too. I think it matters that he's been in a great organization for the last several years in Golden State. And I also really liked a lot of the stuff that he did in Brooklyn on those young early Nets team before Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving got there, that a lot of Cavs fans watched because the Cavs had Brooklyn's pick that year. But I like a lot of the stuff that he was able to do there. And then being around Steve Kerr and the Warriors the last several years, I think is a really good thing for him too as a future head coach.
I like Borrego too, for the record. I did a whole film breakdown on how his offense would translate to the Cavs' current personnel last week. If you want to check it out, it's on our YouTube page. And his last year in Charlotte, when they made the playing game with 43 wins, they were actually 2nd in the NBA with 115.2 points per game. He does get the most out of young guards, and especially young guards that are necessarily not as tall as LaMelo Ball, because Terry Rozier and Devontae Graham had their career years under Borrego. Danny, we talked about this in the show last week. I'm curious what you think. In your dream ideal scenario, who's the one guy the Cavs, and you could go as crazy as you want or keep it in the terms of realisticness if you want. Who's your ideal addition to this Cavs team?
I think the dream addition would probably be Mikal Bridges from Brooklyn. I don't know the direction that Brooklyn's going to want to go in this summer. I think they're pretty far away from being a team that's competitive. I know they were a team that has been talked about as one that could sign Donovan Mitchell next summer if he didn't sign a contract extension and the Cavs didn't trade him. But I just don't see their avenues right now. And I know they have a lot of other organizations' picks. They don't have their own picks, but they have quite a few picks from other organizations. I'm not sure the avenues they have to be a real quality contender over the next couple of years. And I think that Bridges is someone they could get a lot for, and I think he fits Cleveland perfectly with everything that he does. I think he's miscast in Brooklyn as their best player right now, but if he's your second or third best player the way he would be here, I think that's pretty awesome. And he handles a lot on the wing. He's a really good defender. He can make shots. He can create for himself and others, especially if he's in a little bit of a lower usage role than what he's in Brooklyn right now. I think adding him to this roster, obviously you'd have to give up something, but if you've got Mikal Bridges, Donovan Mitchell, and Evan Mobley, that's a really good best three.
When you look at the trade that the Cavs made to acquire Donovan Mitchell, looking at it today, how do you grade that trade?
I think it is, as of right now, a win. And I think the moment Donovan Mitchell puts pen to paper on a contract extension, you can kind of close that door on it not being a good trade. If the Cavs acquired a superstar, and yeah, they gave up a lot to get him in terms of draft capital, Lauri Markkanen's become a terrific player in Utah, but the Cavs got the best player in that deal. When Donovan has been healthy on the Cavs, he's been a top 10 player in basketball. He finished 6th in MVP voting last year. I think he was on track to make the All-NBA team again this year. He's been fantastic. Yeah, some of those draft picks have the opportunity to be pretty painful, but if Donovan signs the extension and stays in Cleveland, the burden that those draft picks carry, I think, goes down quite a bit, and it really tilts the scale in the Cavs' favor as far as that trade goes.
What'd you think of the finals? I was watching the Red Sox and Blue Jays last night. That's how much I enjoyed.
Man, I mean, I expected more, and I think that was obviously foolish of me because, I thought I have bought into Luka. Like, I think Luka Doncic is obviously a fantastic player, probably one of the 3 best in basketball. It's very clear he's beat up, and Boston is just, for as I think uninteresting as they are, they're just better than everybody else right now. They are. It's weird because all of their advanced numbers and even their record just points to them being a historic team, and maybe you guys feel differently about this. But when I watch this, I'm like, yeah, they're pretty good. But I don't put them in the same breath as the Warriors when they added Kevin Durant or some of the other really great teams in basketball history. It was certainly not what the NBA needed. Like the NBA, I thought needed a longer series, needed a better series, a more competitive series. It was without question disappointment, and I can't blame you for watching Red Sox Blue Jays last night, Jason. There were better things on TV than Game 5 of the finals, and as just a basketball fan,
yeah,
I hate that I'm saying that, and I feel like it's true.
Well, here's the point I made earlier for all the people, and I'm not saying you're wrong on this, but for all the people who wanted rid of super teams and wanted an even playing field, here you go. This is what you're going to get with parity comes. So, now, this is a little bit to the extreme because so many teams were hurt that Boston had to go through. But it was not a compelling postseason at all because the star power driven teams were not part of it. And I absolutely believe that is going away with the new CBA and the second apron is real. And the levers it takes away from you are real. And I just think that this very much could be the future of NBA playoffs, good or bad, right or wrong. And now the NFL's made a killing with parodying with everyone to someone different winning every year. I'm not sure the NBA can have the same fate. They lost a lot of money. For all the TV contracts that they're going to sign and all the money they're going to sign, they lost their ass this year with that series going 5 games. That's not a good look for the league in terms of financial revenue.
No, it's not. And I do wonder how other matchups would have looked. I think Minnesota was just always a bad matchup for Denver. But if you got Denver against Boston in the finals, how does that look? Obviously we'll never know. I think that just because everyone that Boston faced was hurt, it made for, they were never stressed. And I just don't think it makes for good postseasons when even if you've got a dominant team, it doesn't make for good postseason unless that team gets stressed at a certain point or LeBron James is involved. And obviously neither of those things happened with Boston.
And none of the stars for either team played particularly well start to finish throughout the series. There was guys injured. We talked about the Celtics a little before you got on, Danny, about their historical dominance, but they would just seem to play with their food a lot. And until crunch time came, they would just kind of waltz through the motions, and it'd be an 8-point game. Then, all right, let's decide to actually play, and we win by 17. I saw a stat. They actually won. In the 101 games they played this year, they led 50 of those by 20 points or more at some point during the game, which is absurd, which means they're way better than we probably think they actually were, and they just didn't give a crap for most of the game. With that being said, Danny, one thing I took away from this finals, especially watching the coverage of the finals, is we are moving from a period of media where the game was the most important thing to now it's the drama and the ancillary topics surrounding the game way more than the game itself. Did you get the same sense watching especially how ESPN and their halftime show and Get Up and the ESPN shows in particular, and only because it was on ABC and ESPN, I'm singling them out, on how they cover the finals, that we're moving away from the game itself and into an era where all the other things, who's the best player, the extensions, legacy game for Kyrie in Game 3 when he obviously had the biggest game of his career in Game 7 here in the finals, where those storylines are becoming more important than the actual basketball itself?
You know, I think we've been there for a little while in the NBA because, you know, some of the things that everyone always wants to talk about is, you know, who can my team trade for? Who can my team sign this offseason? And I do think a lot of that, and I think this is a very big picture discussion that I'm sure we don't have time for today, but a lot of that is kind of how content is consumed, right? Like this right now is being watched by however many number of people on YouTube. Like 15 years ago, that wasn't the case. So now you've got kids that might not actually even be watching these NBA games, but they're seeing highlights on Instagram or YouTube or TikTok. So they're consuming the game differently. So it does make some sense if you're, and I'm not saying this is how I want to consume this stuff, to be clear. Like, I want the games to matter. I care about the games. I love the game. But it's so much easier to go out there and to put together a 90-second clip of why, you know, the Cavs should do this and put it on TikTok and watch how many views roll in, and that's how you can boost your profile. So I do think that's why some of these media companies are going in that direction. I think it probably started about the time LeBron went to Miami with the decision being on ESPN. Like, I actually think that is a pretty big pivot point when it comes to how basketball has been covered, how it's been talked about. And then it's also, you know, you watched that halftime show last night. I didn't have a stopwatch on it, but how long did the studio team actually talk about basketball during the halftime show? They get like 2 minutes between all of the commercials. So like it is putting those guys in a bit of a tough position, because what are you supposed to do if you've got 5 people on a panel at halftime? You've got about 2 minutes and 30 seconds total. You've got to get in, you've got to get out. That leaves about 2 minutes for 4 people to make a point. That's a tough ask. That's a very tough ask.
And for the record, we do plenty of trade rumors and free agency rumors and all that stuff here on this show. So I'm well aware we are calling the kettle, what's it called?
Calling the kettle black.
Pot calling, yeah, I understand that we do a lot of that stuff too. But to see ESPN, who's covering the game and has the halftime show for the game, kind of stray in that direction, kind of opened my eyes. But I guess you are right. It's not the first time it's happened, and it certainly won't be the last time. Danny, we appreciate you taking some time to join us today. Make sure you guys check out Danny Cunningham, the newest host of the Locked On Cavs podcast. It is every day. Is there a set time, Danny? Does it depend on what you're feeling when it comes out?
So, I mean, if something big happens, like if the Cavs decide in 30 minutes they want to hire James Borrego, like I'll get an episode up about as quick as I can once I can digest some thoughts. But for the most part, it comes out on YouTube around 11 o'clock at night, and it hits your podcast feed first thing in the morning, about 5 a.m. It should be in Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts.
Awesome. Danny, appreciate you taking some time. We'll see you again on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Make sure you check him out on the Locked On Cavs podcast. Thanks, Danny.
Anytime, guys.
That was Danny Cunningham.